Chair Pryor.
Hello?
Hi, I'm sorry, real quick, Chair Pryor, we can't hear you on Zoom.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Where was I? Gary Drive. Terry Hildebrand. Lori Ward. Nope. Sarah Mayer. Online by chance, maybe not. Negative ghostwriter. Okay. Jordan Pryor here. Mike Scholl is not here. Jessica Schneider, I see you. Ron Stoddart. Ron Stoddart. Thank you.
Donna Drake is here.
I got you, Jonna. Thank you.
Okay.
Patty Swiger, Merlin Thompson, Shane Vick, and I know Natalie's not coming as well. Ah, excellent. Then I will.
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Is there a way for me to get a visual?
That would be a Hannah question. Hannah?
Thanks, Chair Pryor. Commissioner, you've called in on your phone and I don't know your phone's video capabilities. If you have the Zoom app on your phone, you can log in that way. But since you've dialed in, I don't know about turning on the video via phone call.
Jonna, Jeffrey is going to email you the link so you can hopefully join through the app.
Okay, great.
Dope. All right, with that, let's move to the approval of minutes. Are there any changes that anybody has to last meeting's minutes? Yes, no, maybe so. Ron, I saw you put your glasses on very slowly. Did you have something for me? No. Catherine?
Yeah, I had emailed Jeffrey about one addition, and I didn't write it down. So it was just saying that it was on the bios that we finally decided, no, we aren't doing the bios.
Gotcha.
But it never got in the minutes, so I don't know how to say that. So.
Okay, we'll adjust the minutes and we'll just vote on it at the next meeting then. You got a note for that? Okay, just making sure. Okay. With that, let's go ahead and just take a quick look at the agenda. So today, we're hoping to examine our Let's Talk Loveland mock-up and hold a discussion about any changes that we might need and hopefully get it approved for publishing. We're going to continue our previous discussions about what went wrong during the Karen Garner case and hopefully make some final recommendations and close that bad boy out. And then if we have time at the end, plan our agenda for the next meeting, which for some reason I thought it was June 13th and I looked at the calendar and I realized that Texas education may not be the best. It's June 6th. So, all right, with that, we move on to public comment. No public comment inside. Do we have any call-in public comment?
Thank you, Chair Pryor. Users, if you'd like to speak to public comment, please press *9 on your phone or choose the raise your hand feature. I don't see anyone, Chair Pryor.
Okay, and I know we don't have any email comment either. So we will go ahead and move on to our Let's Talk Loveland page. Commissioner Barrett is going to help me out with some of that and just kind of taking everybody through the layout of it, what it looks like, different features and things like that. Hannah, if we could get that pulled up. And then Catherine, you're more than welcome to cut me off at any point and start talking. All right, and then can everybody online see? Yep, okay, perfect. So we do have our, this is our homepage, has the picture of us who were at that meeting, gives a little bit of a bio of what the Community Trust Commission is, et cetera, et cetera. As you can see over on the right-hand side, we have important links, we have our ordinance, we have our 8 pillars of trust and other pertinent documents. If you'll continue to scroll down for me, Hannah, thank you. And so we also opened up a Q&A, what's on your mind and how can we help? As you guys can see, there is a news section. We do have the community survey, which we will take a look at here in a few minutes. This is our note of appreciation to all the people who have come in and spoken and given us presentations and information over the past several meetings. Yes.
Just to let you know, the comments that were received about who to thank and not to thank at this point, we've just made it the people who came to the podium and talked to us. So that's it, okay?
Perfect. And then, yeah, if we can click on that community trust survey. You might want to, I guess we'll have to go to complete form then. All right, so we tried to condense the survey down to as few questions as possible, especially since we were having discussions about potentially taking this survey out into the public, outside of different businesses and things like that. So we condensed it down to 4 questions. Okay. And the best part is with question number 2, we're doing a Likert scale, which, as you can see, is the trust, neutral, distrust. We figured that'd be a lot easier than saying, you know, what do you trust about the community, and have a bunch of answers. What do you distrust about the community? This kind of just pretty cut and dry. And then if you'll continue to scroll down, Hannah, thank you. And then it allows for people to not only describe what their personal take is on the trust or distrust in the community, but also what they think can be done to fix it as well. And Catherine, remind me, is it available for everyone, or do they have to register? Because I don't remember.
We need to decide that tonight.
Gotcha,
Just as
okay.
a point of reference, there was a traffic study that was done recently that had 13,000 responses. So it was a really good survey that was done. People did not have to register for that, but they gave some demographics that allowed them to do what they needed to do. That would be my recommendation, is just to not force people to register to be able to take the survey. But if they want to, then they can come back, and, the advantage to registering is they can come back and see what's going on without too much trouble. There's if you'll scroll to the very top of the page and go to the home. There's a blue button on the very top right that says register. So they can, give us their email and their first name and last name, and then we can follow up with them, that kind of thing.
I'm not clear what it does exactly.
Mhm.
Sorry.
So what's the point of registering? I just
I'm
don't
registered.
understand.
I'm a registered user because I have nothing to hide essentially. So if I ask a question and somebody wants to respond to me, they can reach me with my contact information that I've given them. If you're not registered, we wouldn't be able to do that. But there was an example that Nicole provided where someone had asked a question on the public page on Let's Talk Loveland, and it contained some very personal information and what should have been proprietary. And so they were able to contact her and say, hey, we took that down, we changed your question, and just beware that you don't want all that information on the public website. But they were able to contact her because she was registered.
Okay.
And eventually, as we continue to look through this, we will have a discussion about it. Kind of what our thinking was is it's kind of a double-edged sword here of, we would love for everyone to be registered, because most likely if you're registered, you're probably going to be a Loveland resident, or at least we think at a higher rate you would be, versus if you just let anyone have, free range on it, it might dilute some of the things that we've got going on. And I personally think that that's something that council would harp on, but at the same time, I think that a traffic survey with 13,000 responses is a lot nicer than a traffic survey with, say, 1,300 responses. So, and
Is there an in-between? Like you can register like an address, a phone number, but you don't have to put necessarily a first and last name?
Well, that's kind of our first question here. If you scroll down just a little bit, Hannah. So we have in the survey, if you can click on the, first question is, do you live in Loveland? And you can answer Yes, I'm in Ward 1, 2, 3, or 4. No, but I work or have a business or some interest in Loveland. No, I don't. If you answer no, I don't, that ends the survey there.
Oh,
So somebody might go back and say, oh, yes, I do, if they really want to have their opinion. And then, yes, I live in Loveland, but I don't know what my ward is. And then we have a ward lookup so people can learn their ward.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's a potential outlet as well. So, I mean, I'm up for a discussion on it, but I mean, does anybody have anything else to add? Any other questions? Because I'd like to vote on this.
Do you
Just
want to
kinda get it
go
out of the
over
way.
2 and 3 a little bit so people really understand what's there?
Would you like to?
So sure. So the way we phrased the question as neutrally as possible was thinking about the level of trust and Loveland between residents and the city. How do you feel about the following city departments? These are basically some of the same categories that Jordan had put out earlier, but they were the ones that had the most response from our last survey. So it was Loveland Police Department, City Council and or leadership, utilities, fire department, Parks and Rec, and roads and transportation. And then there's another category where people can choose whether they, trust, are neutral or distrust the other category. And then they can go down to question 3. Thank you. You're very intuitive. And then choose, it can include city clerk. My contacts are not that good. Finance, economic development, those kind of things. And then for the last question, we wanted them to give us something that we can work on. So it's please leave a comment describing what you believe should be done to restore trust in this community. So hopefully people have some positive things to say. The other thing I want to say is that the city is running a survey that it happens every 2 years that they're obligated to run, and that starts June 1st. So this will be running concurrently. And we can also, we also have the option of putting some of our questions on their survey as well, but we need to get that information to Nicole as soon as possible. And they'll both be identified as city, what is the word I'm looking for? City hosted surveys so that they don't get confused with some of the political surveys that have been going on.
Yes, Ron.
Does the city's survey require a registration?
I do not know, but I will ask.
I don't know the answer to
I
that
kind
question
of
either.
doubt it, but I'll find out.
So as far as the survey goes, is there anything that anybody wants to see in any of these questions? Any adjustments that you feel like need to be made? Yes, no, maybe so? Yes. City manager.
For a comment, when you go up and look at where they say fire department, we are not a fire department anymore. About 5 years ago, we went to the Loveland Fire and Rescue Authority. So all of the trucks have LFRA, Loveland Fire and Rescue Authority. Now, some people say it's still a fire department, because so I wouldn't argue with you, but it's a little bit of brand recognition because some people may be confused when they think, oh yeah, that truck just was at my house and it was said Loveland Fire and Rescue Authority on it. So
And we can certainly add fire department and then in parentheses, Loveland FRA, Fire Rescue Authority.
Perfect. Yes, Ron.
I know we're trying to keep this as neutral as possible. Maybe we could, since the question talks about comments on how we can restore trust, and that applies to the entire city. It's not saying to the police department, it's saying restore. Would it be possible to maybe look at using improve trust rather than restore trust? Because restore may apply to the police department if that's where the focus is. But in terms of the rest of the city and other departments, improve might be a better word.
So this is just a 150 character text field. So they're going to be addressing one thing most likely. And I'd love to hear what you all think about using the word improve rather than restore. I chose restore because I think that we've lost trust and it needs to be restored. And that's also in our ordinance was that, that I'm blanking out on the words, but it was like we needed to restore it. But I'm open with who wants to talk.
Catherine Bullard, and then Aaron Black.
Yeah, I like the improve word because restore implies that there just wasn't any, period, end of statement. So, and there are going to, we may pick on the police department that, well, that we need to restore it, but there are going to be people who look at the survey and answer it who have no problems with the police department.
Can we have Hannah please scroll down so I can see that question?
It'll be question number 4.
Well, how about restore or improve? Do you have both? No. But I agree, it's implied. Or I would be open to improve and with restore.
I think that improve could be, again, like Ron had mentioned, a more neutral word. I totally understand where you're coming from, and I agree that we as a group feel like it needs to be restored. But to Catherine Bullard's points, there are going to be people who take the survey that are going to be completely fine with maybe everything that's on that list. We might get some that have, I fully trust as their entire Likert scale on everything. And so in that instance, yeah, they might be a little turned off on that question and might just be like, well, what do you mean restore? There's nothing wrong with it. And so improve means, I mean, even if you trust something and you like something, normally it can always be improved. Yeah.
Just one more thing, we're here because the city finds that the ordinance is necessary as the event involving the LPD and Karen Garner requires immediate attention to limit the damage to the community's trust and confidence in its local government, to mitigate the economic damage related, and to address concerns about the responsiveness. So, that's where I was coming from when I chose the word restore. Entirely up to you as a body.
Yes, Gary?
My first inclination was restore, but when you improve something and there's zero trust to start with, you're improving it up to something else. I could go either way, with probably improve being the best choice for me.
Yep. Sounds like we're getting a lot of improve. So that should be an easy fix. So I have changing Loveland Fire Department to LFRA, and then making the change to improve instead of restore. Anything else? Yes, Tara?
Is it possible to just do both words? Like even do like a slash, restore, improve? Is that a possibility?
Could be. Do we have a certain character limit on the questions? No? Okay. Yeah, let's just, yeah. And Jessica, you can hear us, right? Jonna, you as well? I just want to make sure that whenever we vote on this, you guys can vote too. Okay. Is it maybe because we're sharing screen that they're not able to interact with us? Okay. All right, if the commissioners if the commissioners who are on Zoom can hear me, please hit the raise your hand button just so I can see. Okay. That's one. Yay, Sarah. Okay. Then, okay, Lori can hear us.
Real quick, can I speak?
Go for it.
The button moved, you guys. I think the app must have updated, but the raise hand button moved.
Gotcha. Okay. Then, what was that? What do you mean 5 chance? Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, so people can hear. Okay, then let's just go ahead and take a vote on improve. Yes. City Manager.
When you asked for comments, I just wanted to be able to offer a couple.
Okay.
First is, when do you plan on releasing this survey? And it's not a trick question, but let me tell you what's going on, because it was mentioned. The National Research Center, NRC, is going to be releasing our survey on June 1st. It will be in front of council on May 24th. So it has in it a question about trust. I mean, I think that was the question to ask you. What question, if you have one question, because there's a whole bunch of questions on trust, what one question should we ask? So I know she wanted to get some feedback from the subcommittee on that. So that's the first thing, because this one will go out to a statistically significant number of people, around 2,700 people. So it won't hit everybody, but it will hit enough for us to get a 95% confidence level on this survey that we do with this company. And then we'll be able to compare these results with over 300 other communities who have also indexed all these questions that we'll ask. Our completion time is estimated to be between 15 and 20 minutes. I think you guys are right in there with maybe a minute or two. So plus comment. So I think you're good. This other survey is a more deliberate survey. It's done. We have not done it since COVID. So we're interested in all the service areas and all of the comments they might have, not focused so much on this one topic. But we are ready to release both at the same time if that's so desired, or if you're going to release first, that's up to you. I just wanted to let you know that that's on its way.
I mean, we would need to vote on it, but I assume that the idea
Tomorrow.
is, if we vote on it today, to have it ready tomorrow, just because time is of the essence. Excellent. Okay. Everybody ready? We're just going to vote on the language real quick. Those who would rather use the word improve, please raise your hand. I see Sarah. Okay. Those who would rather use restore, please raise your hand. And those who would rather do restore/improve, please raise your hand. Okay, so you're changing yours. Okay, well, then it seems like we're going to do restore/improve. Excellent. Okay. Are there any other comments or add-ons to the survey that anybody might have? Yes, Merlin.
I was just wondering, how long is this survey going to run for?
I mean, that would probably be the next thing that we discuss. So we just want to make sure that the content of the survey is good first, but anybody else? I don't see hands up there. Catherine Bullard, do you have something?
I was privileged to sit in with you in a subcommittee thing the other day, and we talked about adding recycling, and I thought that was a possibility, and then it's not on here, so I'm just raising that, and that's up to the group.
That was in the other, wasn't it, Catherine? Other Catherine?
It could be.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our award-winning Best in the State recycling program is a city service, which we're very proud of it.
And it's 58%. How about 78%? I'd like that. Wouldn't you prefer 78, 58? Yeah, we have a way.
There are a lot of departments that are not listed, but
I think
Yes, Gary?
Yes, since this survey is just one small part of the Let's Talk Loveland page, my thought process is whatever time frame we pick to let this run, then we pull it down and put something else up in its place. But I don't see a need to limit it for a short period of time, because this is something that's going to be ongoing.
Well, it's definitely, I mean, I see no reason why we wouldn't at least keep it up for the 3 weeks between this meeting and the next one. Maybe even a little bit longer than that if we decide to do so. I just know that the goal, at least in my head, is for the next meeting, June 6th, for us to say, okay, these are our results. We got, fingers crossed, 10,000 submissions. I'm just going to speak it into existence and say, okay, now let's figure out our subcommittees and what other areas we can start focusing on. But again, we can get to how long it'll run and everything else here in a moment. I just want to make sure that the content is good. We'll add recycling as one of the choices. Because I do know that you've been very passionate about that.
Just a little. Oh, yeah.
Yes, Catherine Barrett.
Thank you. So we have different visions about this. My thought was that we run it for as essentially as long as it takes to get a statistically relevant number of people to respond, that we also supplement that with doing tabling events at different events across the city. If we can get enough people from this group to volunteer for that, or if heaven forbid we have to pay people to sit there. But I think that we would have enough people to volunteer to gather the top 2 issues that people in Loveland are concerned about when they think about trust, and then to regroup and find out what we can do to improve that, what kind of recommendations we can make to improve those 2 issues. If we were able to do that, I would be really happy, but that's not going to take 3 weeks. That's going to be the rest of our time.
We literally, if you take out Labor Day and the 4th of July, have 6 meetings.
And that's kind of what my thought process was, is, you know, if we, let's say we don't address the survey results on June 6th, and I agree, I mean, it's going to be tough to get a statistically sound enough number of responses in that time. So there will definitely need to be some volunteer work from a multitude of us. But if we weren't to do it on the 6th, not entirely sure what we would do for that meeting, because I'm hoping again that we are able to kind of finish up with the Karen Garner stuff today. Or maybe we continue that discussion, but then we would be looking at June 20th, probably then, to take time to discuss those results. That will take a whole meeting in itself. And then I would presume, just with how this group works, it would take a whole another meeting after that to break off into subcommittees and to figure out who wants to do what and why and where you're going to meet and how we're going to meet and all of those things. And that's mid-July, that would be. And then we wouldn't have our first true set of subcommittee meetings until the last meeting of July. And I know that probably the entire month of September, we're going to be just trying to get through as many recommendations as possible.
Is there any reason why we couldn't look at them on the 6th, but we don't have to finish it on then? I mean, because I thought that Commissioner Walsh was going to present at the next meeting. Has that been changed?
Yeah, so it got cleared up in the last meeting that I misunderstood her and I thought she wanted to present. She just wanted to talk about the topic. But Jeffrey did just leave me a note that says, deadlines motivate people to fill out surveys from my experience. And I have to agree. If I say, hey, this ends on this day, people are like, oh crap, I have to get it done. So that might be something to look at. Yes, Merlin?
Yeah, I think we have to have a deadline because we are very short time in this commission. And so if we're going to try and put anything together to help the city, if we don't put a deadline on it, we're never going to know.
Right.
I mean, stuff will just keep trickling and trickling and trickling. And then what do? You go, well, now we got to add these, but what about the ones we got? I think there has to be a deadline.
My suggestion would be a deadline, absolutely, but a deadline probably sometime in August, because we've got June and July. The June newsletter goes out and we can make it if we decide tonight if we want to be in it. There's a July newsletter where we'll have at least a little blurb available that goes out to the city. We've got all of the tabling events at the Foundry and other events across the city where we can continue to gather information. The more information we have, I think, the better. And, if we go through, mid-July and then identify our top 2 and then start working on things, it would be better than trying to cut it off sometime in May or June, I think.
My only concern is, and if we're all being honest with ourselves, we're probably not going to get a continuance from council on September 30th. I think a lot of us have it in our head that on September 30th, it's all or nothing kind of, you know? And if we were to end it in August, I just fear that we wouldn't have enough time to come up with a good list of recommendations. It might feel rushed is my only concern. And if the recommendations feel rushed, council will let us know that they feel rushed and likely won't vote in our favor for any of those.
We can also do press releases, social media, and other promotion can happen. Nicole talked about getting a QR code that people can just scan so we have a banner at a table, Community Trust Commission, take the survey here, and then they can scan the QR code and just go about their business and do it from their phone. So there are a lot of ways to get the word out, but we really need to get the word out if we want to have good information.
Yes, Shane Bick.
Since we're talking about timeframes, here's my thought. So, and a question. The advertising and stuff, is that through our commission via the city? And the reason I asked that question is looking at our timeline and I've been flipping back and forth through the calendars here. Because unfortunately, right, Labor Day is a Monday, we probably won't meet. 4th of July is a Monday, we're not gonna meet. But if we deadlined it, like July 13th, can the city put out leaflets at North Lake Park? Then we have potentially a whole bunch of people that can plow that last week, and our July 18th meeting have, just saying, I mean, because I know the community is really excited that the 4th of July fireworks are finally coming back home. So that could be a huge opportunity just to hand out leaflets with a survey and a link to it. And then by that 18th, that's just my suggestion.
City manager, how does the advertising in that regard look? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand, Mr. Chair.
He's asking if basically if we can have some sort of literature to be able to hand out to people that has like a scannable QR code.
Yeah, I
to
think
them.
at the subcommittee meeting, there was discussion about we want to get you cards and we'll get those as quickly as we can so that you're active with those very soon.
Perfect.
So, I mean, I would hope you have them with you. And if you're talking to people, you just hand one out to people. So that was what I talked to Nicole about that. If I can add just one thing I'd send an email out to you on Friday. We have the fire chief process lined out a little bit here. And we've hired Prothman, which is the same company that hired our fire chief.
Wait, fire chief or police chief?
Fire chief, they helped us hire fire chief. And
Yes.
we're hiring them for police chief hire.
Okay, sorry, you started off with
Yeah.
fire chief first.
So,
Okay.
but they were the ones that picked our fire chief too. So the first meeting I want to get them to is your meeting here on the 6th of June. And we're going to send them over to PCAB first because PCAB starts at 5:30. And then they'll be over there for about an hour, then come over here. This is the only time I can get them in person to see you. And their manager, Bob Carden, is the one that would be talking to you for as long as you would allow him to, about the qualifications for a police chief, what the city needs, and so forth, what you would like the community to be shown as. In other words, what should you tell about the community? Because we also make what I call the brochure that goes along. It's a hiring brochure. So he's looking for information on both of those things. And we certainly want to make sure that the Trust Commission has an opportunity to give that feedback.
Perfect. Yes, and I did see your email this morning and I was like, we'll talk about it whenever.
No, I just want to make sure when you're talking about the 6th of June, I want to make sure that we're in there asking for at least 45 minutes or an hour. It's however long you want it to be. It could be 15 minutes if that's all you want. But he will, if it's okay, he will be here for that discussion.
Aaron Black.
This might be another conversation, but we're talking about a deadline for the survey. And I'm just wondering what we all feel like city council, how many numbers do they need to see? I mean, like, I just don't know that whatever we come up with the amount of however many numbers we get, I don't get a lot of positive feedback from that city council. So I'm sitting here and I honestly feel like it's not going to matter. That's how I feel. I feel like it doesn't matter if we get 80 or 1,800 or 18,000. Have they done anything with PCAB, with the Jensen Hughes recommendations? That could have been just a done deal. Check it off, slam dunk, check it off the list. Hasn't been done. And Jensen Hughes is way more reputable than us in that field, you know what I mean? And so I kind of feel like we paid them a lot of money for their recommendations.
What we need to hope for is the 18,000, because city council can't ignore 18,000.
Yeah, I would hope not. I still feel like our recommendations for that, I'm to the point personally sitting on this, that whatever comes back, I'm just gonna hand it to City Manager Adams and say, there you go. And that's all, that's my recommendation. You take what you feel like you need to City Council, not for me. That's kind of where I'm at personally now. I'm still here. I'm still showing up because I made a commitment, but I don't feel like City Council, that's just how I'm feeling right now. So whatever date it is, I don't, I think it needs to work for us. So we feel like we've had enough time to go through that information. But I don't think we really need to worry too much about a week or 3 or here and there. So I feel like if that works for our time schedule to have it done by that date, even though I'd like more, I think that'd be just fine, honestly.
Fair enough. Tara and then Ron.
Okay, this is not going to be a popular comment because Loveland is super excited about the fire show and, or fireworks. But I'm like, what if the fireworks don't happen because of fire dangers? So I don't, like, is the city, can you, okay.
Mr. Chair, is that okay? So that's a terrific question. If you remember a few years ago, we were in very dire straits. The communities around us and everybody was in fire ban. We were the only show in town because we're next to Lake Loveland. And so our fire department did not cancel the fireworks because of the ban that was out there at the time. And that was a pretty restrictive ban. No more barbecues, no nothing. It was restrictive, but our fireworks went ahead. Because that's why they do the wind thing so it goes over the lake. So, and then if I can just, one other comment here.
Mhm.
By motion of vote of your group, I just checked with Moses, you can add more meetings to your agenda. And I'm not trying to make more workload for you, but if there's a way, if you need to move meetings around, if you need to add a meeting or two to your list, if you want to do that, you have the authority to do that. So I just mentioned that to you.
Thank you. Ron?
I think all of us understand the frustration. But when it comes right down to it, we've got to look at ourselves in the mirror when this is all over. So we need to do the very best we can. We can't control how they're going to respond, but we're going to feel good about the fact that we did the best that we could. So I think that as Shane was saying about the timing and whatnot, you folks are much more familiar with that than I am. And again, whether it's 5,000, 8,000, whatever it is, that's what it is. And we'll do the best we can to get feedback, but we need to have the results come back in at a time that we're then able to do something with it.
Yes,
Okay.
Captain Bullard.
Thank you. I just never forgot to turn it off. I know that one of the ways of getting word out is the paper. And Austin was on, I don't know whether he still is, but certainly using the Reporter Herald, yes. Yes, using the thing that comes out with utility billing, but a lot of people don't get the utility billing. A lot of people like me I don't use social media. So just every other thing that we can do, yeah, and I'm glad to help with those things, but yeah, get the word out as much as we can. And certainly Juneteenth.
So let's do this because we've digressed a little bit. I just want to make sure that we can at least vote on the survey with the changes that we have about changing Loveland Fire Department to LFRA, having restore/improve, and adding the recycling option to the survey. If there are no other changes, I would like to move that we approve the survey so it can go out. Okay, excellent. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. And Jessica's no longer with us because she's having technical issues, so. Okay, well, it passes, so excellent. We have the survey, and then let's go ahead and do the Let's Talk Loveland page as a whole. Yes, Catherine.
Real quick, can I just suggest that I will ask Nicole how long the traffic study ran to get 13,000 participation level, and see if that can help us make a more better, God, I'm tired, a better informed decision. Thanks.
Yes, Marlon.
Do we need to discuss or make a decision on how many ways we're gonna try to get it out there? I mean, does that all have to be voted on and all that stuff, or?
Because if you want to do a tabling, we're going to need some volunteers.
So definitely tabling. Yeah, I get voluntold just all the time. Oh, I'm definitely, yeah. Yeah, the wife has gotten me real used to being voluntold. I hope she's listening at home. No, she's not. She has better things to do. Tabling is definitely one. Social media is definitely one. Reporter Harold, I do believe Austin should be listening in. He should be one of the attendees, correct, Hannah? Yeah, there he is. Okay, so Austin, if you're listening, we would love to have our survey and the Reporter Herald. Thank you. But before you actually do that, we do need to vote. I move that we put the survey in the Reporter Herald. Second? Excellent. Anybody comments, questions, concerns? Yes, City Manager.
Don't tell Nicole I said this, but I would volunteer to run an ad or something for you with a QR code and print it in the message. So if Austin, sometimes Austin has bosses too, and they get kind of nervous about trying to advocate for something when you're just supposed to write a story. But if we're doing something where we have the ad in the paper, then it gives him more of a reason to have a story about it. So I will offer that, and we'll figure out how long to run it, multiple times probably, just to get the word out.
Yes, second. Yes, Ron? Your mic wasn't on for that, so I don't think he heard you. Oh, okay. Okay, so yes, accept, second. So just making sure no one has their hand raised. Okay, all those in favor of accepting City Manager Adams' offer to get us an ad in the Reporter Herald, please raise your hand.
Is that not what you said?
All those opposed, please raise your hand.
Nicole.
All right, so that passes. Excellent. So we have two different avenues. As far as tabling, do we really have to vote on tabling, Catherine?
I would like to hear how many, okay, here's the deal with tabling.
Okay.
We need the tables, we need a couple of chairs, we need banners, we need volunteers to staff those tables. I would really like to move or propose that since we're not going to be meeting on the 30th, Memorial Day, that we have a meeting next week on the 23rd and discuss whether or not we can support with this group tabling at a few events, the 4th of July, the Foundry events, there's a bunch of downtown things that go on all the time.
Can
Steve
the
has something
meeting
to
be an
say.
online meeting?
Hmm?
Can the meeting be an online meeting? City Manager Adams, did you have a comment?
Just going to answer your question about, you already had to do an all Zoom meeting because we had your chamber here one night. So we know you can do that. So I'm thinking that if they make a motion, they can have an all Zoom meeting if that's what you needed. The other thing I'm not sure about, I have to check the planning commission schedule for next Monday. I'm not sure if they will be here, and that means you couldn't be here, but if you had a remote meeting, you could still. Remember, that's what happened last time. We had just had a conflict.
Gotcha.
And then a follow-up question, if we do an online and there are going to be decisions made, does a quorum have to be present?
City Attorney?
Two things will have to occur in order for that to happen. This evening, you would have to move to have a special meeting. And those present would get the notice. As I've spoken with Jordan, Commissioner Pryor, there would have to be special notice to those who did not attend tonight, right, at their home address or in person. So once you set up that special meeting, you do have to have a quorum in order to take any business or to act on any business.
I believe page 8 of what you're talking about says that it should be an in-person service of notice. Can we make a motion that since they're here and online, that we have an exception to that?
So those who are participating today can vote on it. Those who are not here would be subject to the in-person delivery, or I think the alternate method was, I think, dropping it off at their home address if you can't give it in person,
But we can't email, can we?
or not email.
Can we snail mail? Really? Well, no, there's Jonna, Jessica, Lori, and Sarah. All right, breakfast at my house, Jonna, Jessica, Sarah, and, okay.
Might as well volunteer to drop those off. So we'll make it work however it needs to work.
Can I just one more thing? Sorry,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Can I just see a show of hands tonight? Just a show of hands. Who would volunteer? Because if we're online and people are anonymous, feeling anonymous, they might not raise their hands. And I would just like to see face to face. Anybody want to volunteer?
Before I volunteer, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
How many events are we thinking that we're gonna do? And then besides that, how many people have to be at every event?
Right. And I'm thinking maybe 5 events through the summer is just off the top of my head. And 2 people should be there at, depending on the size of the event. We can have as many as we want on the 4th of July. We wouldn't be able to cover the whole thing, no matter how many. And my thought is if you just tell me, I'll give you 4 hours, or I'll give you 2 hours, or whatever. We can make that work.
So basically, we would do one event.
If that's what you want to do, yeah. Or you could do all 5, or you could do whatever you want.
Okay.
Mine's going to be scheduled. I want to volunteer, but mine is heavily schedule dependent.
Right.
And I'm out the 4th of July. I can tell you that right now. We have 30,000 people at a park. We're going
Right.
to overstaff.
Okay. I'm happy. Thanks.
Well, that could probably be something that we talk about at the special meeting. So then that way we can figure out more of those details. But again, because I didn't get to see who all is willing to volunteer. Okay. Oh, excellent. Excellent. I just need to know if you're willing. That's all. Yes, Aaron Black.
So at the next meeting, will we have all the dates of the events so that we can, because I'm out the 4th also.
We would probably need to
Summer's
get that
busy
from
for all- I
Nicole.
mean, for all of us, I'm sure, so.
Yeah.
We would need those dates to be, I can't tell you yes to something else.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Okay. she'll get that figured out from Nicole. So then that way for special meeting, once we vote on it and get it done and all that. Yes, Sarah, you have a question?
Oh, sorry. No, I was saying me too.
Oh, thank you. Okay, then I move that we have yes, City Manager Adams.
So as we're looking at dates here, I'm thinking Hannah's checking the calendar for the planning commission here next week or not. The other one is we have a town hall next Monday from 6 to 7. It's a virtual one on homelessness. So if some of you, I don't know if that conflicts with some of your plans, but that was going to be a,
Right?
yes.
Yeah, I thought we weren't doing that. so
Well,
that other
homeless,
people could.
yeah, I mean, you're a little more involved as as a group, but it's PD more than that. But we try not to have our boards and commissions taking up community spaces on that. I mean, you're in the community though. But that's the only thing that's going on next week that I'm aware of. And then I don't know about the planning commission. Yes, planning commission is here next week, so it definitely would have to be remote.
Yeah, so I motion that that is May 23rd, correct? Okay. I motion that for May 23rd, we have an online special meeting. Okay, we have a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that passes. So we will be having a special meeting next week. I'll get that agenda to you, Hannah, Wednesday or Thursday.
We will take care of the notice
Yeah.
to the people who are not here.
Right.
Jordan and I.
Yes, we'll do same time. And I don't think that we'll need the same amount of time that we normally do. Yes, Ron.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be clear that are we able to disseminate information on taking the survey and encourage people to take the survey in any ethical way that we come up with? For instance, giving copies of it to the Chamber of Commerce and asking them to distribute it to stores in the city and let them put out a little, paper. Just in general, if we have other ways to try to get more Loveland citizens to take it, do we need to get approval on those efforts, or can we just do them? And maybe keep Catherine informed.
Yeah, I personally have no issue with it. I trust you guys to, not send it to people out in, a big group of people out in like California or something that don't live here. There's nothing wrong with California, Catherine. Don't give me that look. But yes, I have no issue with it. If anyone else would like to object, feel free. Yes, City
So,
Manager.
Sorry, I'm talking so much tonight. I'll be quiet. I think I'm interpreting his question a little bit differently. And I think the way I'm interpreting his question is it legally okay for me as a trust commission member to be out in the public distributing these things? Is there anything that prohibits me from doing that? Is that true?
Pretty much. I'm thinking more of just sending to different groups that might be able to disseminate it to their members rather than me personally standing on street corners or anything.
City Attorney, would you like to?
Yeah, from a legal perspective and an ethical perspective, I don't think there's a question, of course, unless you're trying to influence the decision as they're trying to vote.
Excellent. Yes, Aaron Black.
So someone can take that to their church, someone could take that to any nonprofit agency that we work closely with. So all of that's, okay.
And just clarifying that you also will have your meeting on the 6th of June. You're still planning to have that meeting. You haven't changed meeting dates. You're actually going to have this meeting in addition to the normal schedule that you have.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And then I think let me ask Jeffrey a question real quick. Okay.
And actually, before we move on, just to wrap this one up, so it is, to be clear, everyone agrees that that can and will be tracked
Say that last part. So Jeffrey poses the question of whenever we're sending this survey out to people, whether if it is a church or a nonprofit or Chamber of Commerce, whoever, should we keep a running list? I think that we should, just so we know. And you don't have to do like individual names or anything. Just send it to my neighbors, send it to Chamber of Commerce, just so we know general idea, because I do think that doing each individual person would just be too tedious. Yes.
I don't see a need for that. I think if people answer and they tell us where they are in Loveland, especially if they do the word thing, that's going to give us the demographics that we need. Do we care if they're Christian or chamber or, that doesn't, that they're residents, they're citizens.
Okay. I mean, if you guys are fine with not doing it, yes, Tara.
I actually do care. I think it is important if we're getting all the results from churches, I think that totally skews the information. And it also leaves out huge pockets of the community who don't go to church. So I do feel like we should be aware of where we're getting information from and who has access to it. And everybody's gonna have access through the Let's Talk Loveland in a way, but I know some of my family members were very like, we would never do that because it's a little more difficult for them. But anyways, I think we should keep a running list.
Then let's go ahead and have just a quick vote on that, shall we? All right. All those in favor of keeping a running list for who you send out the survey to, please raise your hand. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All right. So, sorry, you guys. I'm sorry, you guys. Yes, Aaron?
So what are we doing about the Spanish-speaking version of our survey and reaching out to that population with that?
I know that there's a button that you can click on the Let's Talk Loveland website that attempts to translate it. But if we know any Spanish-speaking people who can be at those live events, that would be amazing. We could do something at the library. We could, if we want to try to coordinate something at the library, they'll support that.
Yeah, I have contacts that live out at Lago Vista
Mhm.
and would be more than happy, I'm sure, if I requested for her to take some of those. Because she's the one that's trusted in that community. I probably won't go out there, but she would do that. But it would need to be in Spanish. So.
Yes, Steve?
So I have an idea for you. I don't, on the card that you're going to have, why not put one side English and the other side Spanish? And we will do the Spanish translation. We have, I forget how many it is, different languages that we can do that for. So if we did that, then you'd have, they just flip it over and they'd know it immediately. That work out? Okay. All these things that Nicole's going to be doing.
We're talking just English and Spanish. Because there are a variety of Asian languages, but it also is AAPI Heritage Month, so.
The survey, and we can look at adding a note. If you go on to our website, you can turn it, I think it's 30-something languages.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think the point there is to try and let them know how to do that so that then they can get the language that they're familiar with.
Excellent, thank you. Okay. Oh, pages whole, thank you, sorry. Okay, so since we have the baseline of the survey figured out and the changes that we need to make, and that's all been approved, we do also need to approve the Let's Talk Loveland page as a whole, so. It's not?
I'm sorry, you're talking about the trust project?
Yes, yeah. No, you're okay. You know, we're in charge of the whole website. Did you know that? I'm sorry. You're okay. It's Monday. So yes, are there any changes that anybody feels needs to be made to the Let's Talk Loveland page that we have as a whole before we vote? Seeing a lot of no shaking of the heads. Excellent. Thank you. Yes,
Since
Tara.
we were talking about the translation, can we make sure that translation button is actually on the actual CTC page and that they don't have to go look for it somewhere else? And on the survey too, that they don't have to go look to a different page to try to find the button that translates it? That would be helpful.
Yeah, and just to double check, city manager, is it already on the initial page, or how does that normally work?
It's been a while since I got that briefing, but I hear what you asked for, and if we can do it, we'll do it. And, you know, if there's a way to program that in so the link goes right there.
Excellent. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Then I move that we approve the Community Trust Commission Let's Talk Loveland page as a whole. Thank you. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Would have been really funny if someone would have raised their hand. Okay. So we have the survey approved. We have the Let's Talk Loveland page as a whole approved. And we'll kind of work out a lot more of the survey details with the special meeting next week. As far as how long we want it to run and things like that. And we'll find out from Nicole how long it took with the traffic survey to get 13,000 submissions or whatever that lovely number was. As well as find out what dates people could volunteer to do tabling and things like that. So until, what is that, next Monday, the survey will just kind of run as it is. You guys are more than welcome to share with whoever you want to. And then we'll have kind of a better game plan figured out next Monday as to how we want to do this stuff in person, how long we want to let it run, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, with that, I am going to move on to the next item, which is kind of just continuing our discussion from last week about the breakdown in communication regarding the Karen Garner incident. And hopefully we can figure out some recommendations and kind of close out this chapter. So if anybody would like to kick us off. Yes, Catherine.
How do we do that without the IA report? How do we close this out without the IA report?
I have a feeling we're not going to get that IA report.
So we don't close it out.
I mean, I still feel like there are still recommendations that we can give. I mean, we've seen things, you know, we've gotten documents up to this point. We know that at some point between the blue team report being filled or the incident and the blue team report being filled out, there was a breakdown in communication, I believe is what we had kind of agreed on with Natalie.
Do we know that there have been changes made since then?
Yes.
I think when they did their report, the very first thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, they changed was the time frame of their blue team reports. Of when the officers, right, file that, who report, I mean, that was like the very first things, I think before Jensen Hughes, correct me if I'm wrong, that changed out.
And the second thing is that HR now reviews every blue team report that has use of force.
Right. Yes, Tara?
Our recommendation, I kind of feel like our recommendation could be like implement all of Jensen and Hughes recommendations. They paid people a lot of money for recommendations, and it feels weird to be saying the same thing. Just say implement Jensen and Hughes recommendations. We unless we found one that we didn't agree with or that we wanted to add on.
If you move that, I'll second that.
I move that we recommend that city implements all of Jensen and Hughes recommendations.
I second. Yes, there's time for discussion.
Yeah, the work group that I'm a part of has to do with PCAP, and they painstakingly went through the 5 recommendations for that for the accountability, for citizen accountability. And 3 of them were passed, no problem at all. One of them doesn't need to be done. It's already done. Jensen Hughes just mentioned something that we're already doing, as the city does. And then the 4th one was accountability. And when you talk about accountability, there were 6 people in the room who voted. The 2 women voted, yes, we want more accountability. The 4 men voted, no, we don't, we want status quo. When you talk about accountability with PCAB, especially trying to turn PCAB into an accountability body, they would have to have special training. They would have to dedicate 40 hours a week of their life to looking at these types of body cam footage and that kind of thing. There's just no interest in that group in doing that. And the minimum accountability model is to have someone review IA reports once they're completed. So right now, this body would potentially review the Karen Garner report just to give feedback to LPD and to the city about, here's how this strikes me. You might be expecting this kind of feedback. Did you think about this? Just assessing the quantity or the quality of the assessment that was done. And the group that was there wouldn't even go for that much. So, we just have to be, I think we should hear from the people who attended each of those groups to find out what those groups did and what they learned and what obstacles came up before we just blanket, let's pass everything.
I will say to rebuttal that though, if we were to make the recommendation for PCAB to be doing all of those things as said in the Jensen Hughes report, and say it were to get passed somehow, it would very quickly weed out the people who aren't interested and put people who are interested in doing that kind of stuff into that position. Just my 2 cents. Yes.
We as a body agree with that last recommendation that you want our city to have a civilian oversight group?
I do, but
I have reservations. And here's why I have reservations. There's a difference between, there's a saying out there that goes around that's called lawful but awful. Anytime you interject potentially social justice against laws in a book, you create issues. And we're trying to build trust. I think a citizen oversight committee is a great concept if done correctly. I'm not totally against it. I just have reservations because even as from a paramedic, right? If so let's take a mental health case where we have to tie down somebody and drug them and sedate them. To the average citizen, it's going to look like we just beat the snot out of a person having a breakdown, and that's not what we're trying to do. You have a citizen oversight committee who doesn't understand all the policies and procedures, why the 40 hours is probably put in place and all the other things. You now have a social justice issue and you start dividing those committees, then nothing gets done. So I like I said, I'm not totally against it. I'm not totally for it. Those are my reservations because you have to have a good selection committee and the right people who truly want to make a good difference, not just I hate cops, so I'm on this to make this right. And I love cops, so no matter what those people say, you see what I'm saying? I mean, those are my reservations as a community trust commission member of that. So.
Yes, thank you. I do really believe that we need to put all those recommendations forth, put the burden on someone else. If we fail to take those actions and make those recommendations, somebody's going to bounce it back to us and say, you guys didn't act. So I think that it's imperative that it goes forward, up, so that somebody else will make the decision, yes or no, and then it's their blame, not ours.
right. And real quick, Catherine, before I let you go, to kind of piggyback off of that, at the end of the day, we're only supposed to be making recommendations. It is their job as the city officials to create these groups, to monitor them, to make sure that they're being ran properly. Granted, our survey might tell us that that may not be our wisest decision to entrust that, but that's, on paper, that's how it's supposed to go. So, Catherine Barrett.
You all have convinced me. But what I wanted to say was that the actual recommendation from Jensen and Hughes is for the department to take a look at all the to gather information from all the stakeholders and review the models of accountability across the nation and determine if a better model is needed in Loveland. So never mind what I said before. Thanks.
Yes, Catherine Bullard.
Well, thank you. I think there's a middle ground that's very helpful. Because, yeah, maybe we don't want to say we need to have this group trained in being, my words fail me, as they will a lot. But at the same time, some training so that they have some concept of this, of what's going on and how they might help, even though they don't have the, the major training does that make sense, Shane?
It does. There's just a lot of, there's a lot of case precedents is set, why a police officer can contact somebody, why someone can't, you know what I'm saying? That it, from the general standpoint, from a general public, may not look good. That's the unfortunate part about first responders' jobs. There's some things we do that just doesn't look good. That's the only way to say it, unfortunately. That's the crux of probably every police oversight citizen commission is the decision of, right, how does it look? What does the headline read? And what really happened? And over the last 2 or 3 years, we as a society, in my opinion, obviously, we have taken the headlines. No, it doesn't matter what the law says anymore. We pop out a headline and everybody gets all fired up, and then the truth comes out, right? It ebbs and flows. Those are the dangers of those. Like I said, I'm not totally against it as a, I'd have to think long and hard. I just have my reservations as a commission to say, yes, this needs to happen just because, but there is middle ground.
It's just choosing the people to be on that committee, which is not going through all the big training, just to make sure they have some interest and get some feedback from the police. I don't know what goes on at their meetings, but I think there are people who've been on for a long time. I don't know how they're chosen, but
Yeah,
some recommendations.
I think, well, Chief Tyser gave us a presentation, and the takeaway I got from the Police Advisory Commission was that they went to them with, if I remember how he said that, like, we go with them with our slideshows and our presentations, and do you think our slideshow looks good? And is this how we should present it? And that was their, right? So it's another step. Like I said, I'm not against it. I just wanted to hopefully open up that discussion of, hey, it's more than just picking 6 or 7 people to sit on this board. There's a lot to that. Just like on the medicine side of it. There's a constant, there's always somebody looking over your shoulder, which I get, but there's some things that happen, unfortunately, in our world that just will never look good, but be the right thing. Does that make sense? So that's all I'm going to say.
Catherine Barrett.
So sitting in with these police officers for those meetings, I heard one say basically what you're saying, that if I tell someone to turn around and put their hands on their car, they don't. I have to force them, throw them on their car and get it done. And I'm like, do you? And the officer who gave Karen Garner 12 seconds before he threw her to the ground. Do you really need to do that? I'm in real estate, and I have a real estate commission that looks over my shoulder, and it does a lot of good work to keep people who should not be doing this job from doing this job, people who are going to hurt people. The banking commission is the same way. They have trigger words that come up, and they get involved when oversight is needed. So that was the argument to trying to get some oversight for the police department.
I see that, and I hear those words all the time. The difference between your commission, a banking commission, is they don't have to make a split-second decision that the guy who won't put his hands on the car isn't reaching for a weapon to kill them. That's the difference, in my opinion.
Gary.
Yes, thank
And then
you.
Ron.
Just because setting up that kind of a oversight committee is hard, I don't think it's up to us to shy away from that, because we're to make the recommendations, like you mentioned before. Someone else out there will have to make that decision is, yes, we need this, or no, it's too hard, we're not going to do it. But that way, it falls on their shoulders. But we do need to put forth anything and everything that we believe needs to go forth.
And Ron, real quick before you go, just to piggyback off of that, I agree 100% that if we're being honest, majority of the recommendations that we make are not going to be voted yes for. Just going to put it out there. So might as well make as many as we can. So like Ron said, at the end of the day, we did everything we could. And if you guys don't want to help out the city and take our recommendations, fine, that's on you. That's not on us. Sorry, Ron.
Well, my understanding is that Jensen Hughes has submitted their recommendations to the city, and that those recommendations are going through work groups and other methods to try to implement where it's possible to implement, and that regarding the police oversight or civilian oversight board, their recommendation wasn't to establish one, but to look at the various things that were going on and to see what Loveland could do to improve it. I don't see any reason why, part of our recommendation that we could not say that we support the Jensen Hughes recommendations, because their recommendations were to investigate it, and that's what they ought to be doing. So then, aside from the Jensen Hughes recommendations, we can look at other recommendations that we think are important. And in my mind, those recommendations have two pillars: communication and timeliness. And if you don't have both of them, then you may not need either of them. So I think that's what our recommendation ought to deal with. And unfortunately, well, or fortunately, they're not going to be so specific that anybody's going to be able to implement them. But what we're going to have to do is, for instance, with the Karen Garner situation, I think we all know that the problem was that the issues weren't communicated up the chain and to the right people. And when they were, it was so far after the fact that, sorry, Merlin.
No problem.
That, it started getting lost in the fog of war. So I think that our recommendations, in my mind, have to be centered around to the extent that there were people within the police department that should have done something and didn't. Put it in their folder. Make sure that there's a note in their folder. I don't need to know who they were. I just would like to know that as time goes on and they're being considered for promotions, they will deal with that issue. So it does not become a no consequences thing, but does not also doesn't come down and ruin their career. As much as I hate to say that this thing has to be a learning experience, it really does. I mean, the other things that have happened and everything that were terrible, sometimes we think that there has to be consequences. But sometimes the best consequences is that you really do learn, you really do grow, and you really don't do it again.
So real quick, you just an extra name. Oh, Gary, sorry, I didn't see that you had your hand up. Yes. Oh, okay. So I was just going to address that. So what it sounds like from the discussion that we've had is there were 5 major recommendations from Jensen Hughes, and the one that has not been addressed is PCAB. So I would hate for us to just say, hey, let's endorse everything from Jensen Hughes, and then we take it to council, and then they say, well, we're already doing these 4 things, and then the PCAB issue just kind of gets brushed off to the side. So,
Just to clarify.
yeah,
On that, on the recommendations, the city of Loveland is implementing, or at least have subcommittees discussing everything. They just didn't discuss the PCAB, or they just kind of blew it over? Where am I at on that?
it sounds like they blew it over, correct?
City, it's Loveland Police Department.
Right, okay.
Yeah, they put together 5 work groups and they took a look at, I don't know anything about the other work groups. The feedback I've heard is that it was not good.
Yeah, I was only able to attend 2 for the one that I was in,
I
and
thought PCAB did better than what I'd heard the other groups had done,
yeah,
because they at least addressed 3 of them.
yeah, it was a little rough in the ones that I attended. Yes.
So yes, thank God, because they had one in there about the community perspectives, and they gave several recommendations. And I feel like we are representing the community. So maybe I should be very clear about those recommendations that the community gave to Jensen and Hughes, that Jensen Hughes outlined. Those need to be addressed as well. It was communication and transparency, community engagement, aggressive enforcement and policing philosophy, bias. And I have a little side note because my friend who is Mexican came and visited me for the weekend, not me, came and visited for 2 days and got called the N-word twice, one while they were running after paying the $10 fee up on Devil's Backbone. And their statement was that, wow, I experienced more racism here in Loveland in 2 days than I have living in Mississippi for 4 years. So bias, oversight and accountability, engaging people with mental and behavioral challenges. So those were like big things that they pulled out from the community, that the community thought these things needed to change to build the trust. So maybe, thank you, Aaron. Those are the recommendations I really wanted to see the CTC promote.
Of course. And then just real quick, Johnny, did you have your hand up earlier? No? Okay. Okay. Yes, Aaron?
So I just wonder, piggybacking on her, so the five recommendations that didn't include the community perspectives was operational practices, supervision, leadership professionalism, process protocols for complaints against LPD personnel, community engagement, and citizen advice and oversight. So LPD put those 5 working groups together. That was not the city. And so far what we're saying, I want to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, is that 4 of those were addressed, but number 5?
Just in section 5. the
Section 5 of.
Citizen accountability section. There were 5 points under section 5.
Okay, so I have those right here.
I can give you a summary on what happened with each one real quick. So, thank you. Membership criteria, absolutely, that's going to be completely changed. It will be limits on who could be former law enforcement. It will be a more diverse group. It will, they're going to do everything they can to make sure that, at least one person from each ward is chosen. Nicola's going to do a much better job of trying to get more recruitment for that. The city should consider establishing term limits for PCAB members. There are no term limits in any other commission. So what would happen would be that if enough recruits came, that would allow people to leave. Right now, there's just not enough people showing up to even allow for term limits. And again, no other board or commission has that, so they didn't think that was necessary. Developing bylaws there's no commission that has bylaws, and the bylaws govern the commission. They don't govern the LPD. So the PCAD's bylaws would not do anything to help LPD. So they changed that basically to a memorandum of use, of understanding. So they're gonna have an MOU between the PCAB and the police chief, the new police chief, to say, hey, we want to see this stuff beforehand, we want to see it, we want to have time to digest it before we vote. If you need an urgent vote, we want to be able to call a special meeting and give that to you, to support you. So that would all be done, absolutely, but through a memorandum of understanding. More meaningfully engage the community. That's actually the LPD doesn't do that. That's all the chief information officer of the city does that already. So it's really not appropriate that the LPD duplicate those efforts. And then the last one was, and this is the most important one, in conjunction with a group of civilian stakeholders, the city of Loveland and LPD should consider analyzing civilian police oversight models and make recommendations on the appropriateness and feasibility of establishing citizen oversight within the community. And that's the one that was voted down. But Assistant Chief Lori Scott basically said, I don't care if it was voted down. There's not enough people here to make this decision. We're just making recommendations here. She's going to make sure it gets back out to the larger body of people who were there and get everybody's feedback on it.
Right.
She is so impressive. She needs to be considered for police chief, in my humble opinion. Okay.
So that didn't include City of Loveland, that just include the PCAB.
Which one?
So number 5, it talks about group of civilian stakeholders, City of Loveland and LPD should consider analyzing a civilian police oversight model. So
Right.
just because PCAB voted it down doesn't mean the city
Yeah,
shouldn't also.
there was
look
only
at
one
that.
member from PCAB there, but the work group, the LPD work group voted it down by 4-2. But again, Lori Scott is going to take it out to the larger group and just, and she's not going to say that we're not going to do this. She's going to say, these are the people, there's these many people who don't want to do this, and here's why, and there's these many people who want to do it, and here's why, and present both sides to city council, if that makes sense.
So that addresses that, but it doesn't address community perspectives section. It doesn't have, there's no LPD working group working on that.
Do you have the ones that don't have a working group circled? Is that what I'm seeing on your paper? Well, that's lovely. Okay, easy enough. Yeah, so community perspectives, which includes communication and transparency, community engagement, aggressive enforcement, and policing philosophy, bias, oversight, and accountability, engaging people with mental and behavioral challenges. Yeah, and that's
Page 19, 20, and 21.
They didn't form a subcommittee, because if I remember correctly, Sergeant Johnson said they addressed some of that in training, right? Weren't they doing more trainings or something about
I think they
mental health?
felt like maybe some of that would be gone over with the 5 working groups that they put together.
Okay.
I don't feel like bias or anything to do with BIPOC population is being, just from what I have witnessed. with the
Right,
group.
right.
So I don't know if that's coming up in other working groups and that's being addressed.
I was just trying to
But
remember.
we didn't want the community perspectives section to be lost because LPD working group did not arise for that section of recommendations. And so I know Tara and I kind of felt like, and Patty, then that should be up to the trust commission, then to trust that, and bring that to city manager, or city council for recommendation.
Okay.
And for me personally, I feel like some of that is relationship building as far as bias and things like that. And you have to have open communications, and that's where those roundtable discussions, in my opinion, come in, that I think the library could be really beneficial in being a facilitator for something like that for the police department and the community. And I'm sure there's other people with a greater experience with background with working with communities, departments with bias issues that would be helpful in putting something like that together. But we don't want the community perspective section to be lost in all of this.
Gotcha. Yes, Patty?
I agree. And so we could, in our recommendation, we could add that. We could make sure that we have that in there, along with the ongoing mental health. I felt that wasn't addressed as well as it could have. I mean, there's steps that were taken, but and the concern with the mental health of the people, you know, that come in contact with the police. But I also have concerns with the ongoing mental evaluations of the police officers themselves, to look out for each other and to feel a sense of, you know, I'm accountable to my fellow brothers and sisters in law enforcement, and to be able to have resources readily available that they can take advantage of, and for there not to be any repercussions for someone taking advantage of help if they feel they need it, and no repercussions if you make a recommendation that you get mental health, that you seek that out. And I think if, you know, looking at the Karen Garner situation, maybe shouldn't say this, but he had said, the officer had said, I'm not the officer that I once was, that I was proud of. That didn't just happen. And I think there needs to be accountability.
Well, and I wish that that was just countrywide, that there was more resources for officers, because the idea that, you know, a third of these guys don't have PTSD or, you know, something along those lines, this is a hard job. And we've established in the beginning that being a police officer is a hard job, hence why none of us are doing it right now. And they see so much stuff on a daily basis that the idea that someone doesn't have some sort of anxiety or depression or PTSD or fill in the blank with some other, you know, mental health issue. I mean, it would be a joke to think that someone doesn't have that, or if multiple people don't have that on any given police force at any neighborhood, even the good ones, you know? And, you know, I think that that might be something that needs to be expanded as well. So I think that we should probably withdraw what we had on the table as far as a motion, because now we have a little bit more clarity. And instead, now that we have it circled, thank you, Aaron, I move that we re-recommend the community perspectives section of the Jensen Hughes report and kind of push that to the forefront. Yes.
If I recommend, like, we're gonna say, you need to do this?
Yes,
Or not?
like,
Is
hey,
that what we're-
this section of the Jensen Hughes report has not been addressed, at least not to the fullest. This needs to be relooked at. We need to put more time and effort towards communication transparency, community engagement, aggressive enforcement and policing philosophy, bias, oversight and accountability, engaging people with mental and behavioral challenges. These weren't completely fixed. We need to readdress these.
And I don't know that we have the answers either as a commission, but I don't want that, there wasn't a working group put on that. So I just don't want that to be
Right.
falling through the cracks.
Yes, Tara?
Well, and I also wonder, since we're lucky to have Mr. Adams here, but like, it's almost like maybe, because our experience with the working group too was there were some things that were, met quite a bit of resistance from the LPD. And because this is the community and the city is like the focal point, like maybe it's something the city, it might be more of like the city's working group than just the LPD's working group. Like the city might have a broader perspective. I don't know. That's just a thought that popped into my head.
Hold on one second. City Manager Adams?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. So to get back to your concerns, and I've heard them from a number of you, I wish I could quote verbatim the quote from Winston Churchill, "We're not at the beginning, we're at the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning." And in other words, we've just started. So we're just starting in this process. We're not going to be done by the five focus, those groups. Those groups have to make a presentation to me. And they are still getting ready for that. They also know, because I've told them, that there's not only questions in pages, I can tell you all the questions in this whole report, and we haven't addressed those either. But we had to start somewhere where we had implementation recommendations and we had a group of people. We're not done looking at this report ourselves as a city. There are recommendations here that are embedded in our finance department. There's some in our HR department. There's some besides the police department in this. So we are just in the beginning stages of that. So I wanted to let you know that we will be sharing with the council an implementation plan. That implementation plan will take the recommendations that they actually developed here, plus all the other stuff that's contained in there, not just in pages 19 through 21, but in pages 14, 18, 16. There were comments throughout this document where they said the city ought to look at this. They didn't capture it in one of the recommendations they made formally here, but bingo, that's still something that needs to be addressed. So there is still a lot of work to be done and will be done before this comes up. When it does, we will be coming back to the Trust Commission with a final recommendation. It's final draft recommendation of things. Because to your point, some of these items, they think they've addressed. If I don't think they've addressed it, it's not been addressed. The chief hasn't seen it yet, acting chief. Our new chief, which may not be on board by then, we're hoping 4 months total, but he may or she may not have thought it was addressed yet. So there's a lot of folks that are still going to have to look at this thing. So I appreciate all your concerns and comments from tonight, where I have 5 pages. But there are already things that I've talked to our staff about on this report, because we have to be thorough and we have to be complete in what we do, and also address the concerns that have been up here. In fact, remember, this week is new for my chief. He's having fireside chats over at the Foundry Plaza this week. So that's the first time we're trying that out. We'll see how many people come and work through that process. So more to come on all this, but I assure you we'll be back. So my personal opinion is I don't want you to vote tonight to support all those recommendations and what you heard in your groups. That's just the first step. We've got to go take these all. We got to go back out and talk to our community again, and more of those workshop things that we want to do. We got to get more feedback from our community and some of the ideas that Nicole has for us to be going back out to get feedback, like you're going out to get feedback. So we got a lot more work before we kind of call this done. So thank you.
So I would like to voice a bit of frustration. And I do appreciate you for at least clearing that up. But it seems that every time that we want to make a recommendation such as this one, there's always something either LPD or city council or you in your office or whoever that always seems to be working on something congruently while we're trying to make a recommendation. Which is frustrating because, we just sat here and discussed this for 35, 40 minutes. And to be blunt, we wasted our time. And I don't know. I just feel like every time that we try to recommend something or put something together, and I'm not trying to blame you or anyone else for this, but there's always something that is going on that we don't know about, and then we're told about it after we do this kind of stuff. And if I'm going to be honest, if this continues, I mean, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's frustrating that every time that we come to an agreement on something, it gets shut down one way or another, whether if it's someone's already working on it, it's already been done, city council thinks it's a stupid idea. And I'm going to be honest, I don't feel like we're actually helping right now. We just spent 35, 40 minutes talking about this to then get told that. And that's 35 to 40 minutes that we could have been in a soup line at a kitchen or, helping out with the homeless or doing something else. And it's very frustrating, to say the least. Yes, Catherine. And then Gary.
So totally get the frustration, absolutely. And while you were talking, Steve, I was thinking that you seem to have a very good plan that nobody knows about, just to echo what Jordan was saying. So I think our recommendation just needs to be that you put your plan in writing and let the citizens and everybody know what you're going to address, when you're going to address it, and have it be something documented.
Yes, please.
So one, I didn't mean to make you frustrated. And the reason I let everybody talk is I want to hear what you're saying, because I have notes that I need to make sure when we're getting to this point in our work that it's being done. I mean, that your comments are heard and honored for what you're giving for us. And I didn't know that it would keep going this long, so I apologize again for that. But it was great feedback all along for me. So I'm sorry if you felt it was me. But to me, the other thing I wanted to let you know is I just don't want you to go away and say, well, the city's not doing anything about this. We got a plan. And council has asked me to develop the implementation plan, and we're working on that right now, and I hope to have it by the end of the month to them. And of course, we have to have a spreadsheet. You have to have things there. But I think I just didn't want you to walk away and think, well, we just don't have our stuff yet together. I think we're working on this in a very deliberate process.
Well, and it's not just this particular instance. I mean, even if you think about with, we had to wait so long for the Jensen Hughes report to come out, and people were already talking about the idea of an implementation group before that information had been released. And then it got released, and we're like, well, this idea that we've talked about for 45 minutes is now already in action. And that's kind of more where my frustration is stemming from, is it seems that every time that we work on something, we're told that there's already a plan of action in place, that LPD is already doing something, or city council is already doing something, or your office is doing something. And I personally don't know what the answer to that is, but I did want to voice that frustration because it feels like we've ran so many circles since we've started this group. And I know that everyone's heart's in the right place because, hello, I know most of us don't want to be here. I see it on Merlin's face. But we do it anyways because we have such a love for the city. And I personally feel like I did more for the city before we got here, point blank. And so I'm done ranting. I'm sorry. I'll take my frustrations home and play video games or something. Gary, please.
Yes, thank you. I am equally frustrated. We sit here and we hear over and over, oh, this is being worked on, that's being worked on. And I know it's a long process and it takes time, but I feel that even though it's being worked on over here, we need to make our recommendations to let people know we're serious about these recommendations. If we just going to believe, oh, we're working on it, it's going to get done sometime, it may fall through the cracks. It may just be watered down. We need our concrete recommendations put forth to council so that they can make sure it's going to be in the forefront and get things done.
I think it's been, sorry, you're frustrated. Our discussion that's being recorded and watched by other people though, I don't think it's a total waste of time. I mean, even if he's taking notes, even if there's something that maybe they missed, he's taking notes. I'm hoping it all goes in together. I mean, the process when this started was a day late and a dollar short, in my opinion, to begin with, right? But if we can come up with congruent, what the city's doing, what we're doing, what Jensen Hughes is doing, what LPD work groups are doing, we're at least making a dent, right? We're taking one cup of water out of the ocean, but it's still something. That's what I'm hoping with, and hopefully, like, maybe we brought up something that he's taking notes of, they didn't think of or something like that. So I'm gonna look at the silver cloud line. I'm gonna go on Catherine's side of the rainbow.
I like the, I like the glass half full mentality. Okay, well then to reiterate Gary's point then, since we talked about it, again, I move that we re-recommend to city council that there be working groups for the community perspective section of the Jensen Hughes report. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I have to have official language. Yes, Gary.
I don't think that goes far enough because it's not just a working group we're looking for. We need to specify, somebody has to work this out. We're not the ones to decide how they do it. We're supposed to present our recommendations. We're not supposed to present the overall final absolute solution. That's for somebody else. But our recommendations are, you do this.
So are you saying that it would be, instead of saying working groups regarding community perspective, just addressing community perspective? Is that what you're
Yeah,
implying?
because it can be addressed
Mhm.
and a working group can be part of that. But if you limit it down to just a working group,
That's fair.
we're going to miss a whole lot of area.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Then let me yank that one off the table. That one's no longer there.
Well,
Yes, Aaron.
since we know that city manager, he just informed us that he is working on that plan and it will, so maybe in your motion, we back that up. We back city manager up that he's, and make sure that when that comes out, that all of those were addressed in the community's perspectives, but he just told us he's doing that. So maybe the motion can be CDC is in support of the city manager's office addressing the community perspective section. Does that make sense? I mean, he just let us know that they are going to be working on that. I don't know,
I see what you're saying, and I definitely feel like if we just bring it to council of, hey, we want to re-recommend, that you guys look into community perspectives, that they would counter with that.
just to make sure that city manager's office has stated that this is what they're doing. We would like you as a city council to ensure that each part of that community perspective section is addressed in the implementation plan.
Okay. Would you like to,
Or
and
like
yes,
even,
Catherine Barrett?
And that the plan to address it be published to the city as soon as possible.
Okay. With that last little section, would you be willing to make the motion?
I mean, that can even be put on the CDC, Let's Talk Loveland, we have a project going. That's a nice update for the public to know that this section of the Jensen Hughes is being worked on. We would love to know that. You didn't know that.
Right.
Neither did I. It would be cool to have that on the page, right?
Has that, to ask Mr. Adams, has that been communicated globally to the community?
Well, I mean,
somewhere?
I think in the bottom steps of that, that's my job, working with the police chief and the team from them and our other executive leadership team members to make sure that all of the points in this Jensen Hughes report are addressed. I would argue that I'm not focused on page 19, 20, and 21, even any more than I'm focused on page 1 or 68. So there's a lot in there left to do besides just those community perspective pages. And that's what I've mentioned, that we know that too. And just because we started out with these focus groups or the implementation groups, that doesn't mean that we're, like I said before, not done yet. So to say that, I'd say, okay, yeah, I got that. I've told you we're already going to do that, plus all the other things that are in here too that weren't mentioned tonight. So.
This communication you sent out on April 14th, talking about the bullet points and the blue writing in between on how you're addressing things, is this published anywhere for the community to see?
Saying that was sent to our city council, so it's out on that website too as well, or it's sent to the city, so it's in our retrievable area of our communications with council.
Can we recommend that it be published like on Let's Talk Loveland somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, all of the communications and information, I think this was incorporated into one of your set of minutes too, so that it's there. If you want to pull it out and feature it somewhere else on your Loveland, Let's Talk
We should
Loveland
be allowed
page,
to, yeah.
you can decide what other documents have been provided to you that would be good for the public to see and put those out there too as well. Right. There's a lot of good information.
Real quick, you guys, sorry, we are running low on time, so I would like for us to be able to get through this motion if we are, whether if it's a yes or a no. So anything else pertaining to the motion of, Aaron, would you be so kind as to restate that for me? Sorry, not to put you on the spot, but
So how did we want to say that? Do we support city manager or the CDC? Once the city,
let's do that. The Trust Commission recommends that the community perspectives portion of the Jensen Hughes report be addressed, and that we as the CTC give full support to the city manager for their efforts directed towards it. Second? Okay. All right, hopefully Patrick got all of that in notes. All right. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Woo! All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, excellent. That one passes. Yes, Ron?
Just a brief comment. I don't know whether everybody is familiar with the fact that there is a shortage of baby formula. One of the things that, as we're called upon to restore and improve trust. So I think that, as Catherine mentioned, is this available anywhere for the people in the city to see this, what we're doing? And I know that we have public information officers and whatnot, but I think part of our job has to be to highlight on Let's Talk Loveland or whatever it is, not just what we're doing, but what other things that are going on in the city are, so that people get and at least the impression that we haven't solved all the problems, but we're working on them and that we're making some progress. So.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Tara, very quickly.
I just wanted to make sure, I forgot Steve's last name.
Adams.
Mr. Adams. So, because you were gonna come back and let us know about the different ideas for Ray Mendoza or the Citizen Award. And so that's what I just wanted to make sure that that was still somewhere on the agenda.
Say that one more time for me. I was looking at the time,
The,
sorry.
the city manager was gonna come back and update us with different ideas of what the city was coming up with for a Citizen Award.
Yes. We did vote on that, didn't we?
We did. I just wasn't sure the follow-up on it.
Oh, when is that supposed to happen?
We're standing by for scheduling.
Got it. Okay.
To clarify, what I understood it was to develop a sustainable program that would recognize community members for what they've done in our community. We've gone out, surveyed other communities, have recommendations for you on all that, and we're just ready to present that to you as available.
Okay. So then let's do this. That is a great segue into the last little portion, which is agenda planning, which I think we can do in our 5 minutes. I really do. So City Manager Adams had mentioned that on June 6th, the people who are essentially going to be in charge of hiring the police chief, the new one for Loveland, would be able to give us a presentation. I move that we accept that invitation and that they come in and present. Second, okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Question.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I did that too quickly. Yes, Merlin.
I think we should set a time limit on how long we would like the presentation.
Okay, what are you
Because I
thinking?
don't know, 30 minutes, 40 something, but I mean, I don't think we want them to have them here all night.
Right.
And so I think we need to put that in. So that gives them an idea of what they need to present and how they need to get through it.
Would 40 minutes work for you?
That'd work perfect.
Okay, so then yes.
I just want to clarify the motion. I just want to clarify that they are not responsible for hiring a police chief. I am. They are responsible for recruiting a police
Recruiting.
chief
Got it.
process. Okay, so just want to clarify that to make sure. And then to a great point on the clarification of presentation, they're really going to be asking you a number of questions about things, and I will ask them if they can send that in advance to speed things up, to your point, so you can get done sooner.
Gotcha. Okay. Does that work for you? Okay. Okay, then I'll redo the motion since I got the language on that wrong. I move that we accept the invitation of the group who does the recruiting process for Loveland's open police chief position, and that they will come in and talk with us on June 6th. And there won't be a set time because we'll have questions in advance. Second? Okay. Pause. Anybody else got anything? Sarah, is that your hand up for a question or were you voting?
No, for after this discussion.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. All right, that passes. Yes.
One of the things that happened last meeting was that we brought up the subject of recycling and we never talked because of the time limit, which it is now also. We never talked about, can we do that? Do we want to see if that's something that we want to investigate further, or then leave it, or just leave it up to me, whatever. If there's somebody else that would be interested in pursuing that, that would be good.
I would say that we would let the survey do that for us. We're adding recycling in as its own option now.
And I will actually do it myself. I mean, I will go ahead and do
All right, and real quick, Sarah, before you go, I move that we extend the meeting 10 minutes, so to 8:40. Second, okay. Gosh, I have to figure out how many people we have here that are actually voting. Oh, not 9, 9, 10, 11. Okay. 8, okay, yep. All those in favor of extending 10 minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, excellent. All those not in favor? Okay. Yes, Sarah, what was your point of concern?
Oh, just a quick question. Do we need to have an agenda specifically for the special meeting? I'm not sure if we need that.
Yes, we do, and I'll have that over to Hannah in time.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Mr. Pryor,
Yes.
just to be clear, the group has to vote on the exact items of the special meeting agenda, and then you're limited to only those topics.
So, I mean, we discussed it, so I'll just go ahead and I move that for our special meeting next Monday, that it pertains to distribution of the survey and how we plan to handle that, as well as the deadlines associated with when it will end.
May I amend your motion?
Go for it.
May we also please speak about the tabling and scheduling of the tabling?
Yes, that would be a part of the distribution.
Got it.
So again, I move that for our meeting, our special meeting next Monday, that we discuss distribution of the survey as well as the deadlines associated with it. Second, excellent. All those in favor, please, well, actually, nobody has anything to say, right? Before I do this? Sorry. Whenever we get down to like the last 10 minutes, I'm so bad about just like, yeah, just vote. Anybody have anything? No? Okay, cool. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Excellent. Okay, so that's what we'll be talking about with the special meeting. And the last thing before we can go, City Manager Adams had mentioned that with the sustainable award for our citizens, that he would have options to present us, and it's just a matter of scheduling at this point, correct? Do you have the presentation and everything? Okay. So do we want to do? No, she's not. I'll talk to you about that after the meeting. Let's see. So we have June 6th. I presume that won't take more than what, 30-ish minutes, right? Well, with this group.
When
maybe
I'm asked by
45.
council, how long will it take? I feel like I'm being asked the same question now. We can make it, usually our presentations are less than 10 slides or something. They're very quick.
Okay.
The question is how much discussion will you have about it and so
Right.
forth. And that's hard to estimate, but we will make a very short presentation and we'll have the information attached in your packet ahead of time. We have a report we've actually done on what other communities are doing with this particular topic. So.
I was thinking the 20th. I just don't know. I know this group, and so I know that whenever we have the people come in that recruit for the police chief, that's gonna take the whole meeting. I love you guys, but I know y'all at this point. And I'm bad too, so I totally get it. So how about we aim for the 20th on that, which will be our June 20th, excuse me. That'll be our second meeting in June. So I move that we have City Manager Adams do a brief presentation about the Sustainable Citizen Award on June 20th, followed by a Q&A by us. Second? Excellent. Yes, Aaron. Oh, see, I was ready to pull the trigger and I was like, oh, she has a question. Great, let's amend it. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Excellent, that passes. And yes, go for it.
No, I'm just going back to Patty's comment that Tara and her and I working with the LPD group, we were all really got focused on the mental health of our police officers. And I just wonder, in your group of professionals and first responders, you go through a lot of trauma and witness a lot of trauma too. So how are you, we're wanting the police to look after one another, but how does that really work? I mean.
That is a loaded question.
So, I mean, you guys are looking out for each other. You become family.
The police department has probably led the way, actually in the city of Loveland, probably and modeling other things, because they actually have a full-time psychologist now, correct? Dr. Teresa?
Dr. T.
Yeah, Dr. T. When it comes to EMS in general, I can only speak in generalities. Our profession, we have a burnout rate of about 5 years and a divorce rate of like 90%. The suicide rate that's higher than most, but because there's nothing out there, EMS in general is that kind of like lost, forgotten, right? The fire department does great. Everybody knows fire trucks. EMS profession is mostly private. We're pretty special here in Loveland because we're not a private service. We do take care of each other. Our current chief, and we're going to be transitioning here in September, has taken steps to make sure that we have accountability with Summit Stone, the co-responders, that kind of stuff. But yeah, law enforcement's done it, has counselors and psychologists for a long time. Fire departments have typically peer support groups. EMS in general, like I said, I'm speaking in general, is kind of that lost little, because most people, thanks to the TV show Emergency, which all of us probably know, but anybody under the age of 40 doesn't. Everybody thinks the fire department is what runs EMS. So EMS is kind of, we're fairly new when it comes to professions, that kind of stuff, and just the stuff that we, deal with, because it's not, we do everything from transfers to mental health to, we're the catch-all of everything else that happens in first responder world. If that makes any sense. So
Right. And you guys are working with fire and with police. And so if you're witnessing in your job, if you witness those professionals maybe struggling, how does that work with the cross professionals that are all working with each other? Can anyone raise a red flag?
absolutely. Yes, that we are a big family.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of, interpersonal relationships, a lot of talking, how you doing? That was a rough call, that kind of stuff. For a while, I don't want to take everybody's time, but for a while we have like the Mayflower CID team, critical incident stress debriefings. As time goes on, when we have those types of stuff, what's called a hot wash. Everybody sits down, we talk about it, what's going on. There still is a persona. I would be lying if I didn't say there's still a persona. If I were to say, hey, I can't deal with this today, there's still that persona out there that, right? There's a fine line of grit. This is Shane Bick's opinion, we're all a little crazy to get in this profession to begin with, in EMS in general, not everything else, and how long do we do this? Thompson Valley has been amazing because we have people that have outlived the statistics, right? I've been doing it 27 years. We have this phenomenal retention rate. But this is the first time that, right, COVID hit. This is the first time City of Loveland's hit 80,000. We're running more calls. We're seeing lots of pressure type stuff. So it comes down to, we do take care of each other. But like I said, our chiefs are working hard on getting us that help. We connect with the police department. We know that Dr. T, if we went to Dr. T, she wouldn't turn us down by any means. So it's a
don't
work
you-
in progress.
After a critical incident, don't you have a debriefing?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no.
Wow.
I
I have an EMT daughter that,
there's days
absolutely
that, we have 6 ambulances that cover 450 square miles and like 102,000 people. So when you say critical incident, right, if we have let's take a critical incident like a suicide or a young person suicide or young person death, we can sometimes hot wash those pretty quick, but you have to understand we have 102,000 people that we're also responsible for. So it may not happen right away, but we do have people that check. Our battalion chiefs are awesome. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? That kind of stuff, because we still, like I said, I don't know how else to say it. It's a fine line of being able to, shut everybody down. We have to have an ambulance available. Unfortunately, it may be your truck after something horrible happened, right? It's part of the profession, unfortunately. That makes sense? I'm trying not to speak for our entire profession, but.
No, I think it just made me think when Council Member Foley, I didn't quite follow him, but in some ways, it was an interesting thought to kind of think of it in more broader terms, because it's not just LPD or fire, it's our EMS, it's everybody working together and care about your mental health, all of you.
Right.
And how that works, working together with.
I think in Loveland,
across
I think we do a good job. There's always room for improvement. Does that make sense? Once we budget, because we're a Title 32 taxing district, Thompson Valley Health Services District, we have some options that a private ambulance service wouldn't have. So that all goes together, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's there. Is there room for improvement? Absolutely. But it's just the way our things work. Yeah.
June 20th is a holiday, Juneteenth Day. We had a new holiday this year, Juneteenth Day. So it's June 20th. We're
For everybody. It's city, national, state. And tomorrow night at City Council is major stuff on homelessness. maybe? Yeah. No, it's tomorrow night.
So,
I mean, the June-
so the June 20th thing we'll address at the yeah, yeah, at the next meeting. So, well, we have time for it and we'll probably do it for like the 22nd or something. But with that, I don't want to get sued. It's 8:40.